Ah, the good old Aztecs, ancient Mexico's bloodiest, most warlike, and most famous ancient culture. While they're more popularly known for sacrificing thousands of people a day, cutting their hearts out with obsidian blades, filleting their skin off, wearing it, and dancing around in the town square, a lot of things that really disturbed the conquistadors, the Aztecs actually had a much more beautiful and intriguing side as well that probably most people have never even heard of. The part of the conquistador account of the Aztec capital that you usually don't hear is that the city was so stunning, beautiful, evocative, and innovative that Spanish soldiers even asked Cortez if what they'd seen was actually real or if this had all just been some kind of dream or a mirage. Tenochtitlan may have been the most sophisticated urban design of a city they'd ever seen. Tenochtitlan floated on top of Lake Texcoco. The city's street grids and layouts were so meticulously planned that they were precisely interlocked with the celestial events of the day and night sky. The roads consisted of wide cobblestone streets where thousands of citizens could walk back and forth from their homes to the markets, gardens to hear poetry, zoos to see all of Mesoamerica's most exotic birds and other wildlife, even an archaeological museum in a sense where the Aztecs had pulled artifacts from even more ancient cultures all the way into the Mexican Valley, into Lake Texcoco, and into the center of the city of Tenochtitlan. And especially impressive was the city's main plaza where all the festivities were held. On the outer section of the city where houses floated on the water, there were canals between blocks where people would hop on a small boat and paddle through town. So we can imagine a stunning Mesoamerican Venice of sorts. It would have been completely unlike anything the Spaniards had ever seen before. And as grisly as some of the Aztec scenes must have been, they were actually obsessed with cleanliness. They bathed daily and regularly used soap made from copal resin and agave roots. Even their herbal medicine was sophisticated with over 1,200 different plants from around Mesoamerica that were cataloged by Aztec doctors, listing each plant's use and recipes for mixing the plants together for specific treatments. Now, the reason for the Aztecs' incredible amount of sophistication and progress just over their roughly 130 to 150 year reign is because they were standing upon the shoulders of giants. When the Aztecs migrated into Mesoamerica from their semi-mythical homeland of Aztlan, which may very well have been somewhere within the continental United States, perhaps New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, the Mesoamerican world had already been rolling along for some 3,000 years. In fact, the Olmec heads had been erected about 3,000 years earlier, and the Olmec civilization had already risen and fallen into obscurity. And it's very possible that the Aztecs never even knew who the Olmecs were or that the Olmecs had even existed. Furthermore, the great ancient city of Teotihuacan, with its Great Pyramid of the Sun, the Moon, the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, the very famous ancient Mexican city that we've all at least seen photos of, had already been abandoned for nearly 1,000 years by the time the Aztecs discovered it. The Aztecs absorbed the Mayan calendar system. They adapted to the 260-day sacred Mesoamerican calendar based on the human gestation period. They learned how to farm maize and wage war in the Mesoamerican way, with their own flair, of course, and they learned how to quarry, transport, cut, and lift megalithic stones just as the Olmecs, Maya, Zapotecs, Teotihuacanos, and Toltecs had done before them. And in today's lesson, I'm going to show you and break down some of the largest, most megalithic Aztec monuments ever discovered. Very well, at least most of them, you have probably never seen or heard of before. And my hope is that at the end of this lesson, you'll have a new appreciation for the Aztec world and what they were truly capable of, and you'll be able to see that they're not just this grisly, vicious, warlike, sacrificial culture that they have been painted as for the last 500 years, that their culture was much deeper, much more nuanced, and much more sophisticated than you may have previously imagined. So I'm about to head back down to the Amazon, but when I'm not macheteing my way through some jungle or drifting through some barren desert, I'm still pretty active at home. I train Muay Thai 3 or 4 days a week. I go to the gym 3 or 4 days a week. I eat a lean, high-protein diet, and I also take Qualia. When you put a lot of stress on your body through traveling or through exercise, you begin accumulating what are called senescent cells, and you can think of these like quote-unquote zombie cells. This could be one of the reasons that you feel low on energy, your joints hurt, or why it takes too long to recover after a workout. Now, today is my 28th birthday, and obviously in a couple more years, I'm going to be turning 30. So I'm getting ahead of my health and my aging by taking Qualia. Qualia is a groundbreaking clinically tested supplement made of vegan plant-derived compounds that help your body naturally eliminate the senescent or zombie cells. And it can help you feel more rejuvenated quickly. By taking Qualia only 2 days a month, you can help your body age more efficiently at a cellular level. It helps to support my energy and to age better than I would have otherwise. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/caverns for up to 50% off your first purchase and use code caverns for an additional 15% off. That's qualialife.com/caverns for an extra 15% off your first purchase. Your older self will thank you, and thank you to Qualia for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the show. So in the modern day, unfortunately, the vast majority of the ancient Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan has been reduced to rubble. It was destroyed as a result of Spanish colonization. They tore down the Great Pyramid of Templo Mayor and on top of it built a Catholic church. They broke apart the monuments, repurposed the stones to build colonial buildings, smashed the statues to cut off their power or energy, and burned many of the Aztec written records. And this was all done in an attempt to utterly erase the Aztec identity and their ability to remember who their ancestors were, what they once believed, and where they came from. All of this in hopes that these inquisitions would ultimately convert these native savages to Christianity. Now, in our last video, we discussed what a tragedy it was that ancient Alexandria was also reduced to rubble. It's just that the geographically advantageous area that Alexandria was built resulted in it being invaded and plundered an innumerable amount of times throughout antiquity. And unfortunately, Tenochtitlan in the middle of Lake Texcoco was exactly the same. It was just in the most advantageous spot of Mexico. And after it was conquered by Cortez, they essentially began leveling the city and they built New Spain in its ruins. Much like ancient Alexandria, this probably would have been the most glorious Mesoamerican city. I've been all around the Maya world, and while those cities are absolutely stunning, they're amazing, I just get the sense from standing in Mexico City, and especially visiting Teotihuacan, which is just north, the environment, that cool, crisp, mountainous air. Tenochtitlan probably was the most beautiful, most epic, glamorous, splendorous city of all of ancient Mesoamerica. They, again, were standing on the shoulders of giants. They adapted all of the best traits from around Mesoamerica, from the Maya, the Zapotecs, the Toltecs, the Teotihuacanos. The fact that Tenochtitlan was not preserved is one of the other great crimes against humanity. If that city had been preserved in its original state, it definitely would have been one of the most important archaeological sites on the entire planet, probably rivaling the Great Pyramids in Egypt in its splendor and importance. However, when you go to Mexico City today, and when I go, I always stay at the Hotel Majestic, which is right there on the modern day plaza where the Templo Mayor would have once sat, and you go to the Templo Mayor Museum, and you can actually see some of these Aztec monuments that have survived the ruins of time. And I was quite impressed at the Templo Mayor Museum and the Museum of National Anthropology. When I walked into the Aztec section, now in college I studied the Maya, mostly studied the Maya, and some of Teotihuacan. I had not really looked into the Aztec world, and when I walked into the Aztec Museum, I was absolutely floored at the amount of megalithic monuments, giant statues, all carved out of solid black, very hard basalt, polished to a degree that rivals some of the objects and artifacts that I've seen in Egypt. And the sophistication of the designs is just mind-melting to look at. And so we haven't talked about the Aztecs on this channel, but I think a cool and interesting way to begin would be by going through a list of these megalithic monuments from the Aztec world that you have probably never seen before, and we're going to be breaking down where they came from, how they were found, about how old they are, how much they weigh, and what their significance may have been in the Aztec world. Now, for monument number 1, I'm sure that most of you have probably seen the Aztec calendar stone before, or otherwise sometimes known as the sunstone. When I was first seeing photos of this, I thought that it was something that maybe a couple of guys could lift up. Maybe it was something about the size of like a sewer plate lid. No. The Aztec calendar stone is absolutely gigantic. It was discovered December 17th, 1790, and it was on top of the main plaza of Templo Mayor, and it was underneath one of the floor slabs. It seems to weigh about 25 tons, and its significance to the Aztec world is that it encodes the cosmology. It depicts the 5 suns, or the cosmic eras, and calendrical cycles that are central to Aztec timekeeping. It was likely a ceremonial platform for rituals symbolizing divine order or solar supremacy, and undoubtedly probably some people got their hearts ripped out on top of this thing. And I think this may have been the most jarring thing I saw on my first time through the Aztec museums. You walk in and you can see it up on the back wall, and you see people standing below it taking photos, and you realize that this thing is 20 times larger than you ever imagined that it would be. It's this huge round 25-ton stone that would have sat on the floor at the top of the temple. And it's one solid piece. It's absolutely magnificent. Next up, I wonder if any of you have ever seen this before, is the Tlaltecuhtli Monolith. Now, this was discovered just very recently on October 2nd, 2006. It was near the Templo Mayor underneath Mexico City, and it was discovered during urban excavations. It's broken apart now, but it's estimated in total, when it was all one piece, to weigh around 15 tons. And its significance to the Aztecs is that it depicts the earth goddess Tlaltecuhtli as a sacrificial altar symbolizing the earth's role in sustaining life. It seems that it was buried post-contact to protect it or preserve it from being destroyed by the conquistadors, and it reflects its sacred status and rituals. So while we give so much other credence to these other Aztec gods, perhaps Tlaltecuhtli was a more important god than we have previously realized. It also seems to be tied to the Aztec zoo's ecological balance and poetic myths of creation portraying Earth's fertility. Perhaps by burying this monolith, they thought that the Earth goddess may turn around and bless the Aztecs sometime in the future, or maybe even save them from the conquistadors. Next, we have the Coyolxauhqui Stone. This is one of those incredible examples of Mesoamerican artwork. It's not like ancient Egypt or ancient Greece where you immediately look at it and you automatically know what you're looking at. It's almost like Mesoamerican artwork is poetic in a sense, or that it's filled with riddles. You have to sit and stare at it for a considerable period of time to truly take it all in and to be able to absorb what you're looking at. And I think you'll see even more examples of this as the video goes on. But it was discovered on February 21st, 1978 at the base of Templo Mayor's Huichtepotli Shrine underneath Mexico City, of course, and it was found actually during construction of the city. It seems to weigh an estimated 8 to 12 tons, and it's made out of solid andesite, which sometimes andesite can be as hard or even harder than granite. Its significance to the Aztecs is that it illustrated the god Coyolxauhqui, the moon goddess, being dismembered by Huichtepotli, symbolizing solar triumph over lunar forces. It marked a ritual space where sacrificial reenactments occurred, reinforcing cosmic order. And I say that so much of this Mesoamerican art is filled with riddles and deep understandings that are filled with nuances that perhaps only ancient Mesoamericans would have been able to decipher, or maybe even the Aztec people, or maybe even only Aztec shamans, priests, and astronomers would have been able to understand what they're looking at. Because these are two different forces. You have a moon goddess being dismembered by Huichtepotli, and what it's showing is that the sun will always win out against the moon. But what the deeper cosmological understanding behind this is, we can really only infer by looking at little bits and pieces of evidence that still survive the Aztec world. we probably will never ever have a fully deep and concise understanding of the Aztec world because the conquistadors went to such great lengths to destroy all of the context and the identity of the Aztec people to force them to convert to Catholicism and ultimately become patrons of the Spanish Catholic Church. Next up, we have something else you've probably never seen before, is this absolutely enormous circular altar known as the Tizoc Stone. It was discovered on December 17th, 1791, exactly 1 year to the day after the solar calendar stone. It was found in Zocalo, Mexico City, almost directly next to where the calendar stone was found. And it likely came from Tenochtitlan's central core ceremonial center where the emperors such as Moctezuma would have performed divine rituals. It seems to weigh anywhere between 10 to 12 tons, and it's carved out of solid black polished basalt. If you follow the story being told around the side of the altar, it commemorates the Emperor Tizoc, who seems to have ruled sometime in the 1480s just before contact, possibly right before Moctezuma took the throne. It seems to venerate his conquest with carvings of captured cities and a sacrificial basin. Very likely, the Emperor Tizoc himself may have stood on top of one of these things and cut somebody's head off or pulled their heart out with an obsidian knife. It glorified imperial power in rituals, possibly involving zoo animals like jaguars as offerings. And again, I've been talking about this zoo because the city of Tenochtitlan actually had a zoo where captive animals from around Mexico were held for onlookers to look at and were probably also being used in ceremonial rituals as well. Next up, we have the Coatlicue Statue. Now, this is one of those statues that I look at and I think about our modern day Frankenstein or werewolves or the Skinwalker. We have these mythical horror creatures that exist in our pop culture, and I often wonder if this isn't exactly the same thing going on in the Aztec realm. It was found on August 13th, 1790, also in Zocalo, Mexico City, and was found during plaza renovations near the Templo Mayor. It weighs about 20 to 25 tons, and it's carved out of solid black basalt. We think that it in some way represents Coatlicue, the Earth Mother goddess. It embodies creation and destruction with its serpents and skulls, but it's clearly some kind of different form of the Mother Earth goddess. We think that it was central to rituals honoring divine maternity and possibly put on display near Templo Mayor, perhaps inside the sacred ceremonial center. And the last megalith we have is something that I always love showing people when I bring them with me through Mexico. And when you pull up to the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, it's right on display out in front of the museum. Why? Because it cannot fit inside of the museum. It is the largest megalith ever discovered, at least anywhere in Mesoamerica. And that is the completely gigantic megalithic statue of Tlaloc. It was discovered in the early 20th century. Nobody really knows exactly when though, and it was moved into Mexico City in 1964 and broke down all of the trucks that were attempting to transport it. It weighs nearly 200 tons. And Mexican archaeologists think that it depicted the Aztec rain god Tlaloc, and the reason for its size is because Tlaloc may have been one of the most venerated gods of the Aztec world, perhaps the most important god of the Aztec world, as rain itself is vital for agriculture. And the god Tlaloc was worshipped in nearly all of the known Aztec festivals. The statue symbolized water's life-giving force likely used in rain summoning rituals. However, there is a problem here. A lot of Mexican archaeologists wonder if this is truly an Aztec monument or if this is not a remnant that was pulled down towards Lake Texcoco from an even larger, even more ancient city. And that is, of course, Teotihuacan, which sits about an hour's drive north of Tenochtitlan. It's possible that the Aztecs found this giant monolith within the city of Teotihuacan and pulled it down to Tenochtitlan and perhaps even adopted this god of Teotihuacan. Nobody really knows for sure, but this is an argument that's often made by scholars, and it seems to be a 50-50 split on whether or not the Aztecs quarried and erected this megalithic statue, or whether or not it was a remnant from an even more ancient civilization that was pulled down to Tenochtitlan. Anyway, There is so much more to discuss about the Aztecs, whether it's the Aztec accounts that actually exist of their interactions with the Spaniards, more details about the great city of Tenochtitlan, or even searching for the semi-mythical Aztec homeland of Aztlan, which may exist right here in our home in the United States. So if that's something that you're interested in, please leave a comment in the comment section down below if you want more Aztec content. I'm Luke Caverns. For more videos on the history and mysteries of the ancient world, please like and subscribe for more.